Why am I doing this? I need to pretend I'm talking to a person, otherwise I think I might go insane. So, hello, I am messing my hair around. I am Charlotte. I am a creative writing master's graduate and I write and read horror. I am trying to read a lot more this year than I've read in the past, and as a consequence I find I have a lot of opinions and I don't know where to put them. So here I am. This is me, and I'm going to just run through all the books I read in January and talk about them. That's it. That's the concept for this video. It's quite basic. I actually got the idea from watching Gab Smulders, who does these every month and then does a big review at the end of the year. So if you like horror books, please check hers out. I get a lot of recommendations from her videos as well. So, the first book I read this year. I have a list. The Apparition Phase by Maclean. Side note, I've not researched these at all. I don't know anything about most of these authors. This is totally at face value. So The Apparition Phase. I really loved this book. It was gifted to me. I did not know what to expect. It has quite a low-key cover. Thought it was just ghost story, 1970s, British. That's it. That was all I had. And I thought it was going to be pretty generic. Because of the blurb, it feels like the way it describes itself is, okay, so there's two kids, they're messing around in the attic and uh-oh, they unleash a ghost. Guys, that is not what the story is at all. It is so much more complicated than that. It is, to be fair, it's hard to summarize. I see why they put that in the blurb. So I'm going to go into small spoilers, but nothing that would stop you reading the book. So these two kids, they're growing up together, they're weird, they sort of do fake ghost photos and things like that. They're into this very macabre energy, they're just weird. And they're twins. One of them ends up going missing when they're teenagers. And then it's more about how the brother goes on to cope with this, or rather not cope with this. And as a teenager, he sort of goes and joins a group of elite ghost hunting other teenagers, and it's not a conventional ghost story. It's more about the processing of all of these teenagers with some kind of trauma and the complexities of these teenagers, while having the underlying mystery of, well, what actually did happen to his sister, which I thought was really interesting. And I loved the setting. The 1970s setting was very, very well written. It felt very, very true to the British 1970s identity, and the characters had depth. I really felt for them. I could understand them, but also see that they weren't necessarily good people. Really, really interesting. And the ending, it doesn't necessarily explain everything, but it gives you enough that it hits hard. 5 out of 5. It was a great first book for the month. Why can I not keep my hands still? Okay, so that was, I can see myself, but I'm in reverse. That was The Apparition Phase by Maclean. Next up, we had Teenage Girls Can Be Demons by Hailey Piper. This is a short story collection. Like most short story collections, it is hit and miss. I I don't think I've ever read a short story collection that was not like that. Some of the stories I did really enjoy. Some of them... yeah. This is really hard, actually, because a lot of these are stories about gender and identity through this paranormal or supernatural lens, sometimes just straight up fantasy. There was a superhero story in there, which I have no interest in the superhero genre at all, but this story was so good and so interesting. It was a sort of magical girl transformation, but one of the teenagers who has this magical girl transformation is a boy who goes through the magical girl transformation, and as a result gets to know her gender a lot better. And it's really, really phenomenal how Hailey Piper managed to find all of these different ways to talk about identity through this lens, and some of them are so original and really, really powerful. Others I just couldn't get into in time before they ended. It's a short story thing. Maybe I'm the problem because I say this about every single short story book I've ever read. Should I be drinking this so loudly? I feel like that's gonna make a horrible noise. Oh well, it's hard to rate a short story book. If you like short stories, and you like horror, and you like stories about gender and identity, or, you know, any one or two of those things, you would probably like this, or at least like enough of the stories within it to be worth picking it up. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I do feel that's a bit harsh. I think Goodreads should allow half stars. I said what I said. Goodreads. I see you. You see me. Okay, moving on. Slade House by David Mitchell. Slade House by David Mitchell. This was interesting, and this was also gifted to me, and I didn't know what it was about, but I read the blurb, and it's freaky house, different time skips, malevolent force. That's it, that's all I need. So I really enjoyed it. I think that actually it works very well. The time skips, it starts another 1970s story and jumps, I think it's 9 years every time, with these sort of, how do I describe them? They're not ghosts, they're not spirits, they're sort of like vampires, but not really. They're sucking up souls for people on this sort of recurring basis. And we see the stories of their victims up to a point where they are inevitably defeated, quotation marks. And that sometimes works, that sometimes doesn't. I read a book with a similar time skip house concept a few years ago that was really, really good, that I now can't remember the name of, and I will mention below, because I will go and find out what it was, because I really liked it. What threw this book for me was right at the end. It sort of just gets a bit too fantasy, and it's it seems a little bit convoluted. It doesn't really tie everything together. It feels like it's creating something bigger. Now, when I put this book into my Goodreads, I saw someone saying that this is written within a wider fantasy world that the author writes in. Again, have I researched this? Absolutely not. I believe it because it makes sense for the experience that I had with that book at the end. It doesn't detract from how good the book is, actually. I think it's done really well. I think it's really hard to successfully write different eras within one book, and it's really hard to tie everything back to a house. And I really, really like when things are tied back to a house. I'm a big house lover. It's a normal thing to say. And yeah, it ties it together okay. It just doesn't... The earlier stories hit better than the later ones because it feels like it gets more and more convoluted rather than tying everything back together. But again, it was a gift. I wouldn't have picked it up off the shelves, and I am very, very glad it was gifted to me. I really enjoyed it. Writing, very good. Characters, very good. Again, you have only got a short amount of time to get to know each character because it's consecutive stories, but they do it. They manage it. They're successful. Boom. Next book. That's it. I can't remember if I rated it 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's up there. It's not S tier, but it's very good. Okay. Oh, okay. So we're going for a more conventional horror read now. How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold. Thank you, my notes. I liked it. That's it. No, I thought it was really fun. It was really fast-paced, quite gory at times, which I love to read. Don't read into that. I think okay, I have 2 qualms with this book, and they are not big ones, but they were enough for it to not be a top tier book for me. Firstly, I just couldn't picture all the characters properly quick enough. There are some characters which I just felt were a bit too similar to each other, and I couldn't remember which of them was which, and I don't know. I didn't feel connected to them. And you get enough information about character backstories that you can feel sorry for them, but not enough that you can connect with them. But it's not necessary for what it is. It's just fun. It's just a bit of fun. It's a story about these writers. They're all writers. They go to a will reading for Mortimer Queen, an esteemed horror writer, which felt like a really obvious play on Stephen King. Is it just me who thought that? No, it's too obvious. But I don't... If it's so obvious, is it allowed? Is she allowed to do that? I mean, I guess she is, because she did. My other qualm... Okay, this leads us into my other qualm. One of the characters is called Melanie, and she's not a published writer. All of the other writers there are successful, they're cool, they're rich, highbrow, which also, is that a thing? I don't know. But anyway, this character Melanie, who's sort of the underdog, and she's like the nice one, she's the one who deserves to succeed in the evil house. It felt too much like a self-insert. I could be wrong, but she's called Melanie. The author's called Mallory. This was her debut novel. I might be reading into it. Does it even matter if it is? It doesn't really, but it pulled me out of the story a little bit. because I kept thinking, is she just writing about herself? Is this what she wants to happen to her? But I think that's also partially because I am a writer, I do write, and I'm hyper aware of when I read about authors or read about writing, and it's a thing that obviously comes up a lot because you have to write what you know. So a lot of people do write about characters who write, and I witness it, and it always makes me feel a bit weird. Well, anyway, good fun, entertaining, fast-paced, bit gory. 4 out of 5. Done. Next. Okay, this has been very successful. So, Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. It was okay. Can I be honest? I thought it was a bit boring. I feel bad because the prose is lovely, the writing's great. But okay, so her wife has been on an underwater submarine expedition and didn't come back for a long time. When she comes back, she's a bit wrong. It's a very interesting premise, but nothing happens. It got a bit more interesting right towards the end, where you really get to see more of the eldritch horror-y stuff under the sea and the backstory behind what happened under the sea, why they came back a bit wrong from their expedition. But there wasn't that much of it. There wasn't that much. It's a short book. It's fine. It's different. I like the characters. I could really picture them in my head. Actually, out of all of the books I'm going to talk about, this is the one I could picture and feel the characters the most. So it has that going for it. But no, not enough action for me. Again, if you like flowery language, allegories, symbolism, if that's your thing, sure, you'll like this. If you like fish and water and wives, this could be the book for you. If you like bathtubs, large eyes, maybe getting too specific. So for me, 3 out of 5. And I really wanted to talk to my friend Claire about this because she told me she didn't love it either. And then I held off because I wanted to make this video instead, so hi Claire. Let me know what you thought about this book. Okay, moving on from that to my favourite book I read last month. The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Fracassi. This is so good. I have not read another book like this. I was reading this at work and someone came up to me to ask me about it because they'd seen it on a shelf and they weren't sure if it would be good or not. So, I got too excited. Okay. This is about, let me set the scene. We've got Rose Dubois. She is a lady in her late 70s. She's at a retirement home and people start getting killed. And there is a reluctance from the police to investigate because they're like, well, these seem accidental, or like they could be accidents. It's just old people. And Rose and her friends get together and they do a bit of crime solving. It is amazing. It has heart. It's a slasher with heart. These stories of each of the people in this care home are so sweet and so endearing, and they're all in different positions. Some people have kids, some people don't have kids. You can see Rose has a daughter who really wants her to move out, to move in with her and her son, but other people, they're trying to get out because of the murders. Their kids are saying, oh, you know, it's not a good time. And then, obviously, some of the people die. And you get to walk through those last moments with them. And some of those scenes, I was welling up. I nearly, if I hadn't been reading this book at work, I probably would have been crying at home. It's so good. I don't even want to say too much more because I love this book so much and I think everyone should read it. Unless you don't like slashers. Because if you don't like slashers, then reading about old people getting murdered is probably not fun. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that. It's so good. 6 out of 5. No, that's not true. I do have one more thing to say. Oh, I almost forgot. Okay. Something happened right at the end of this book, which I didn't enjoy. And that was the reveal of the killer and the sort of final girl sequence with Rose. I almost feel bad saying this because the rest of the book is so amazing, amazing, amazing that I don't want to say anything that would put people off reading it because I think you should. But I didn't really like the reveal. I didn't like who the killer ended up being. The finale sequence ended up feeling a little comical. Everything else in the whole book is super grounded and in-depth and emotive. The reveal, it didn't have enough build-up. You can sort of guess. So there's a couple of people that it leads you in a few directions. It works, it's good. But the outcome, it didn't feel justified to me. I think it would have been better if the writer stuck with the person they imply it is throughout the book, rather than making that a red herring. I think the writer should have stuck with it and the payoff would have been better. I can see that they tried to change it or you know, create a red herring deliberately to surprise you at the end. And that worked, but in a disappointing way for me. Because it ended up being someone there was no emotional stake tied to their relationship with Rose. And that is all I'll say, because if I say any more, I will be going into spoiler territory, which I do not want to do. So anyway, aside from that, 100 stars out of 100. I've changed my system. I've radically changed my system. Okay, and then the last book I read this month, We Used to Live Here by, oh, I'm gonna mispronounce this, by Marcus Kliewer. That could be right. Ta-da. I read this in one sitting. Is that indicative of how good the book is? not necessarily. It's more that I was on a train and had nothing else to do. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't great. It's spooky. Again, it's got a good spooky house in it. Spooky characters. It's a very different premise to any I was gonna say haunted house, it's not even haunted. Any horror story, full stop, that I've read, it's different. It's more, this is minor spoilers, but not really. It's more alternate timelines horror than haunted house horror. And it does it very, very well. The things it does with that concept are very scary. And they really make you think, you know, how scary is it not to be in a haunted house, to be with people you don't know, but to fall into a world where people don't know you, where your loved ones don't know you, where, you know, there are doppelgangers in a sense. And that's sort of what it does. Again, the writing's very good. I do think the writing's very good, and the build-up works, the characters are good, but it just doesn't answer enough questions. I don't know how it could, but I would have liked to see a more positive ending, maybe a bit more resolution. I think for what it's doing with the genre, it's taking a classic horror structure and saying, ooh, the end is ambiguous, it's not necessarily resolved, it's got this gothic, where do we go from here feeling. Why? That is my question. It's the sort of book that made me want to Google some things afterwards to see if I'd missed anything, which I thought I might have done because I did read it, as I say, in one go on a busy train. But it's just like that. Maybe he was leaving room open for a sequel, but I don't necessarily like reading horror sequels. I think horrors should be one and done, unless I say this, unless they are kids or young adult. Mostly young adult. I don't think there's much kids horror. If there is, please tell me about it. This is a tangent, but I've never seen a kids horror book. I have seen tween and young adult, and I love tween and young adult horror, and I think they do. What was I talking about? Oh, I think they do series quite well. So, for anyone who doesn't know, this is my Skullduggery Pleasant tattoo. I would call Skullduggery Pleasant tween horror. And I write young adult horror as well as adult horror, and I do write it in potential for series format. Adult horror though, to get back to the point, I want a story that's all encased in one thing and then I can move on to the next thing. I don't want to get invested in a particular scary story. I want it to be scary and then be like, oh, finished, okay, next thing. It's gotta move quickly. I don't know. So maybe Marcus was going for that, but if he was, again, why? This tea is going cold. 1 second. Okay. So that's all of the books I read this month. let's rate them. The best one, I might make a little tier list and put it here. But for the time being, I'm just gonna say this out loud because I know what I'm doing. What did I mean by that? Wow, where's that confidence every day? Top book, The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre, even though I didn't like the ending. And I think that's a statement in itself because it's really, really hard to make a book that is 5 out of 5, which doesn't stick the landing at the end. But normally, if you don't have a good ending, that throws the whole book. So that's important. Next, The Apparition Phase by Will Maclean. Not what I expected, but really, really good. And I've never ever seen it anywhere apart from when I was gifted it. So I think it needs more recognition. Next up, I'm gonna say Slade House by David Mitchell. It's, again, it seems to tie into something larger that I do not care about. But the stories are really good, the time skips are really good, the historical into modern writing works very well. After that, How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold. It's a solid mid-level book. Any other month it might be higher, but I do think I read some really good books this month. So yeah, it just ends up in the middle because of those other books being pretty good. Then, We Used to Live Here. It doesn't answer every question, but I still had fun. I still thought it was good and enjoyable. Then, Teenage Girls Can Be Demons, because some are good and some are not. Short stories don't tend to stick with me. I like a medium length story. Long stories, they're okay if I can get into them. If not, they drag. Medium stories, I can stick with them no matter what. Short stories, hit or miss, as I said, and this was a bit of both. At the bottom, sorry, it's Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I just didn't think anything happened. It's just, there was nothing going on. I don't know. It's not saying she's a bad writer, because I do think the words were good. I was just bored. So those two things can exist in tandem. Anyway, I want to do something at the end here, and that is a bonus review, because I've already read a lot of books and I'm only just starting to talk about them now. I mean, hopefully I'll read other good books, otherwise this has been a waste of time. but I've read a lot of good books previously, and I just want to throw out a recommendation for books I've read up to this point, so in 2025 or earlier. Today's recommendation is The Possession of Alba Díaz by Isabel Cañas, which also I think I mispronounced. Ew. This book was so much fun. It's gothic, it's female-led with good male characters. Sometimes stories can be female-led with bad male characters, and that it's a different kind of story you're telling, and that's okay. But I liked it like this. It's got possession, demon things going on, but also I just really liked it as a modern interpretation of classic gothic tropes. So if you take Wuthering Heights, topical, incidentally my favourite classic novel. If you change the setting and make it a book with more female agency and a bit more paranormal stuff going on, this is the sort of thing you would get. It's a good length, the characters are great. I was really rooting for the love story that's going on behind the scenes, and that's not something I normally care about in a book. I just loved it, and the ending does land. So if you want a book that sort of does everything, and you like that classic gothic setting, atmosphere, all that jazz, the possession of Alba Díaz it's so good. I have another book by her which I haven't read yet, which hopefully I will read this month. Hacienda, I believe it's called. It's, yeah, I'll just stop there because I was about to start talking about other books, which save some for the future, my goodness. And that's it. So this is something I've just started doing because I need to get all of these thoughts outside of my head because they are taking up too much space, and I am reading more books than previously, so I just can't be messaging my one friend my one friend who might read these books, clarify, every single time I finish them. I mean, I could, but it would actually take more time than just doing this, so ta-da! If you have any recommendations, please let me know. If you recommend things I've already read, I can also do one of these little bonus reviews at the end. If you know any good suppliers of horror books, please let me know, because regular walk-in bookshops don't have that many. I really like to buy my books physically. I like to go into a bookshop and purchase a book. It feels good. But I do think there's a lot more indie horror that can only really be bought online, so I'm willing to look into it. If you know the place to go, please tell me. And that is it for January 2026. I'm Charlotte. You know that. And am I supposed to have a sign off? How does one end a video? Stay scary. It's rubbish.